Hi, everyone. Welcome to the ProVideo page podcast and webinar series. Today, for our webinar, I am joined by Shelley Martinez, who is an inspired life alchemy coach. Her company is Shelley Martinez Coaching. Shelley comes to us today from Rio Rancho, which is near Albuquerque, New Mexico. Shelley helps to empower women to detour emotional roadblocks like high functioning anxiety and feelings and memories that keep them stuck in their lives. She does this using revolutionary hypnotherapy and practical skills. Welcome, Shelley.
Thank you, Anne. I'm so pleased to be here today. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm really excited to have this presentation for you. This is your instant relaxation kit. So today I'm going to show you 4 different ways to feel instantly calmer and more at peace, and they all take 5 minutes or less. So this was our goal. We all want to feel rested and relaxed without a care in the world, just like this guy, at least for a little while if we can. Why do we need this? Well, stressors, of course. And we're all facing stressors throughout our day constantly. Even on the very, very best day that we have a lot of stressors going on. And these stressors often cause tension within our bodies, negative feelings, things like that. Now, feeling is simply a physical sensation plus thoughts. And those feelings are very important. Our feelings give us information about how to navigate the world. So we need that information, even from the so-called negative feelings. However, ideally, what we're supposed to do is get that information and then let it go. So we get the information, then we release whatever that feeling is through our body and our thoughts and move on. But for a lot of us, we don't have the time or the skills to be able to do that, to be able to process those feelings or that stress immediately. And so it tends to snowball in our system and get bigger and bigger and cause problems for us in the long run. So you might imagine this works kind of like a can of Coke that you carry around all day. And every time you run into a stressor, that can of Coke gets shaken up a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And what's going to happen when eventually that Coke gets opened up? Yeah, you got it. It's going to explode or be a big mess. And that's what actually happens with us too. And so this is what we want to try to mitigate because it doesn't actually have to be that way. And so the point today is to help you to be able to relax. And we can do this very quickly, actually, with these skills I'm going to give you. But before we get started, I have 2 really important things that I want to share with you that are going to help you to get the most out of the skills I'm going to be giving you. The first one has to do with the order that we need to relax in. There actually is an order. So if you remember, I was saying that a feeling is a physical sensation plus a thought. The order that we have to let go of that information, those feelings, is we have to calm our body first, and then we can let go of the thoughts. So we've all had that experience of someone telling us to just calm down, or maybe we've told someone else that, and it never works. The reason it never works is when we get stressed out, we begin to go into a stress response, which is sometimes called the fight or flight response. And that literally is preparing our body to protect us from dangers, from physical dangers. So it makes it impossible for us to relax. And therefore, there's no calming down with that. It's there to protect you. It's an old system within our bodies. We all have it. But the good news is that all of the techniques that I'm going to show you today are going to calm your body down and your mind. The second thing that's really important for me to share with you is that it really is critical, if you're going to use these skills and get the most out of them, that you practice. There's 3 reasons for this. The first reason is that you're going to get better at using these skills. They're going to be more effective for you if you practice them, ideally daily, and they're all really quick. So it doesn't take much to practice them. The second reason is because you're more likely to remember to use them when you need to if you've been practicing them. It's hard for us when we get very stressed out to remember new things, and that has to do with processes within the brain when we go into that fight or flight or stress response. But practice is one of the things that allows us to remember new information more effectively. So practicing is going to help you be able to remember these when you really, really need them. The third reason is that practice is going to help you to be more calm and relaxed overall. And isn't that really the goal? How that works is this. Even on your very best day, when you wake up in the morning, you have a lower stress level. But throughout the day, your stress level is going to build up like this. And what happens when you practice is you wake up in the morning and your stress level begins to build. But then you practice one of these skills, so your stress level drops. And then you go on with your day and it starts to build again. But then let's say you practice another one and your stress level drops. So your baseline overall stays much lower, which means that you're better able to handle those stressors because you're already at a lower place to begin with in terms of being more calm, more peaceful, and this is going to help you in all sorts of ways. Now, I'd ask you to keep in mind with this video that you can pause this at any point that you need to. You can go back and rewind it. And you're also going to be getting a handout. So there's no need for you to stop and take notes or do anything like that. I hope that you just sit back and practice along with me and just enjoy the learning experience. Now, this guy here is to remind us that there is a way to even test how far you get to relax. If you choose to do so, this is optional, but it might be a fun thing to try at least for this first exercise I'm about to start teaching you. And what you want to do if you choose to do this along with me is take a moment to scan your body from head to toe and identify any areas of stress or tension that you might be feeling, and also any distressing feelings. And assign those a number on a scale from 0 to 10, where 10 is the worst distress you can possibly imagine physically and emotionally, and 0 is absolutely no distress whatsoever. You're completely calm. Everything is wonderful and great. And we're going to use that then after this first exercise to compare and see how much progress you've made in terms of relaxing. And again, this is optional, but a lot of people like to do it because it gives them a concrete way to see where they're at in terms of their progress. So the first skill we're going to do today is one of my favorites. It's a great all-purpose skill to have in your back pocket. Everyone should have a really good breathing skill, and this is my favorite. This is called diaphragm breathing or pancake breathing, as I like to call it. And the reason I call it pancake breathing is because it's really helpful to have this visual for some folks. So let me explain that to you. What I mean by pancake breathing is that we're going to be stretching our diaphragm out as far as is comfortable from front to back and side to side. And that sounds a little weird until you think about when you pour pancake batter out into a skillet, the batter spreads out evenly in a circle and it spreads out every direction all at once. And that's what you're going to be doing when you inhale with this exercise. So you want to do it as much as is comfortable for you. Don't go into a state of distress because that defeats our purpose, obviously. But we're going to do this together. I'm going to explain it, so feel free to start breathing this way when I explain it. And for the last couple breaths, we're going to do about 3 or 4 breaths together with this. I'll be talking through the first couple, so I won't exactly be doing what you're doing. But follow my directions, and I hope you choose to do this along with me, because it's a really great skill and it works very, very quickly. So what I'd ask you to do first is inhale deeply through your nose if possible, but if not, use your mouth. And remember to spread out your diaphragm as far as is comfortable, front to back and side to sides. And when you exhale, you want to exhale for approximately twice as long as though you're blowing through a straw. And I want you to do that then again a second time. We're going to take another breath the very same way. When you're ready, you're ready to do a third one. And by the way, if you start feeling lightheaded at any point with this, just take a normal breath. And if you'd care to do, feel free to take a fourth breath this way. Generally, not more than 4 breaths with this exercise at a time. And now I'd ask you to take a moment to just notice how your body feels, how your mind feels. You probably notice some relaxation, that your body feels much more relaxed and loose, that you feel more calm and peaceful. If you bothered to take a reading, you can also take another reading now to figure out how far that went down for you. This is one of my go-to skills because it's something that you don't even have to stop what you're doing to engage in. It takes, I've timed it about 30 seconds maybe, and everyone's breathing all the time. Most people don't notice that you're doing this. If you're in a situation where it's going to look very strange, if you're exhaling rather through pursed lips, then just breathe out normally if you need to, but do try to slow it down. That part is important. But this is a really, really good skill to have. A lot of folks that I work with use this when they're in the waiting room for the doctor's office or the dentist office. It's especially helpful if you have white coat syndrome and get really nervous in those places. And if your blood pressure artificially goes up when you're there to see your doctor, it can really help normalize it so that you get a truer reading. And then you will notice that once you've relaxed like this with any of my skills, if you start thinking about stressful things again, you're probably going to feel stress and tension again. And that's okay. That's normal. All you have to do, though, is use one of these skills again. You can't overdo it, and you'll relax again. Now let's talk for a minute about why this works. The reason that this exercise works, this particular form of breathing, and why I really like this, is that there's a nerve called the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve runs from the area of your brain that's responsible for the fight or flight or stress response. It wraps around your organs and goes down to your diaphragm. So when you breathe in this manner, it literally forces that nerve to disengage from the fight or flight portion of your brain, resulting in your brain going out of that fight or flight or stress response, if you prefer that term. By doing it a couple times, you're also getting more oxygen into your bloodstream, which is a second signal that tells your brain that you're not really in danger from an outside threat, because the fight or flight response is all about danger from outside threats. And this causes your body to relax. And when your body relaxes, your mind relaxes as well, and you become more peaceful overall. Pretty cool. Now let's go on to the second skill I want to teach you. This is a great skill if you have issues sometimes with your mind getting caught in a loop. Did you ever have that experience where you keep thinking about something and your brain just goes over and over and over and over the same old thing and it just won't seem to let it go and you don't seem to be able to get it to stop? Well, this skill actually makes your brain stop and allows you to reset it so that you can start thinking of something else. And of course, it relaxes your body in addition to that. So this is a really great technique called the peripheral vision technique. And this is one of those skills that is much harder to explain than it is to do. So it sounds very complicated when I start talking about it, but it's actually very, very easy to do. So we're going to do this together. And I'm going to ask you to just follow along with me on the instructions. And what I'd like you to do now is find a spot to soft focus your eyes on in front of you. Don't strain your eyes, don't stare. And I'm going to do this with you. And while you're soft focused there, I want you to start to see what you can see in your peripheral vision. You don't need to name what's in your peripheral vision, just see. And while you're doing this, now I want you to add to that, sensing the space that's around and over your ears. Once you've got that in place, then sense the space around the back of your head as well. And we're just going to hold it there for 10 seconds. Ready? You can come back to your normal vision, bringing your eyes front and center like they usually are. And I'd ask you to take a moment to notice what that experience was like for you. A lot of people are very surprised to find out that was only 10 seconds because it often feels like longer. And the reason is because when you're doing that, you're very present, similar to when one is meditating and time seems to get much longer when we're doing that. You also, when you're doing it, though, can look very glazed over. And so it's one of those things that if someone catches you doing it and asks what you're doing, you might want to tell them that you were just thinking, even though you weren't thinking at all, because you notice that you stop thinking when you do this, especially once you've gotten the hang of it. Now, you might want to pause the video here and practice it again without me talking. Sometimes it's a little easier to do once you understand it, to do on your own. And this is a really powerful technique for stopping your thoughts again and resetting your brain. Something you may notice now, though, you may notice that you didn't get as much relaxation out of this as you did on the first exercise, or maybe none at all. And that's because you already were relaxed from the first exercise. But I encourage you to keep practicing the skills throughout the end of this workshop because they're all important to practice and do so that you get a sense of them, so that you'll be able to use them in the future. You could choose to think about stressful things as we go along so that you'll be stressed out, so that you can practice and feel that. But I don't really recommend it because life is too short for that, frankly. So just know that these skills are available to you, and learning them here means that you'll have them to use when you need them, and practicing them will make them better, like I said before. So let's talk about why this actually works. Again, there's a biological reason for this. This works because when we become more and more stressed over the day, as I described previously, our vision starts to narrow down. We become more and more directed in our vision. We go into what's called focal vision. So it becomes very, very um, honed in. And when you purposely cause your vision to move out, we go into what's called foveal vision. And foveal vision, when you force it to do this, when you force your vision to go out like this, what it does is it causes your body again to go out of the fight or flight response. The reason that you stop thinking, I think, has to do with the fact that you become very present when you're focusing on your peripheral vision like that, and you become aware of the space around your ears and then the back of your head. It forces you to be very, very present in the moment. And there isn't a lot of thought that can take place when you're doing that and focusing on that. And so, again, if you have a body, this is going to work for you. For your next skill, I want to teach you how to stop an emotional storm. This is really, really useful when you're experiencing distress in the moment. This is a really wonderful skill to have. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to ask you to find a small object. I'm going to use this eraser off my desk. Anything will work, a paper clip, a pen, water bottle, anything that will fit in your hand, fairly comfortable. While I do this, I'm going to hold my hands up so that you can see me in the camera, but know that you can hold your hands wherever is comfortable for you. Lower is frankly probably more comfortable. But all we're going to do with this is I'm going to ask you to pass the item from one hand to the other, always making sure that you are moving it across your nose so that I'm always passing my nose when I do this. And it doesn't need to be a particular speed, although you don't want to go really slow for this. And I'm going to explain to you why this works while we're doing this together. The reason that this works for us is because there are two halves to your brain. You probably are aware of that. And when you are upset, when you're anxious or irritable or feeling overwhelmed or whatever it is, whatever the feeling is that's distressing you, there's literally an electrical storm happening in one side of your brain. And when we start doing this, we are creating a very persistent rhythmic sensation that goes on for both hemispheres. So we're causing one side to fire and then the other. And this rhythmic pattern also directs the blood and oxygen to be redistributed evenly to both halves. And between those two things, this rhythmic pattern of firing in your brain and the blood and oxygen, what happens is that storm can't hold itself together anymore. And so you calm down, and this only takes about 45 to 60 seconds. So it's very, very quick. It's a really, really useful skill to have. And I have a lot of folks who use this in places where they're overwhelmed or stressed out, sometimes at work, and they'll use something smaller and keep it down lower on their body. By the way, you can use wider movements if that's comfortable for you, I forgot to mention, or you can use smaller movements. And so a lot of people who are trying to be discreet about this use small movements like this and smaller items so that people just think that they're fidgeting when they're using it. And it works very, very well to manage their anxiety or their stress or whatever's happening for them. Again, takes about 45 or 60 seconds to work. So super quick, lots of bang for your buck. You're going to get a lot out of this, but practicing is always the key. So last but not least, I want to teach you some tapping. And you may be familiar with tapping. It's also called EFT, which stands for Emotional Freedom Technique. Came out in the 90s, was developed by Gary Craig. And you may be familiar with this, but I would still ask you, even if you are, to practice this with me, because I do this differently than most people do this. And I think that my way of doing it works better for most folks. I've been teaching it a long time, and I taught it the old way for a long time until I learned a better way to do this. So what tapping involves is tapping on various parts of our body and saying a target phrase. And we can target anything, physical or emotional, to mitigate it or to just resolve it. The rule of thumb is to tap on anything that's bothering you, because if it works, it's wonderful. And if it doesn't, well, you're only out a minute or two. And it works on a surprising number of things, even physical issues that have a distinctly physical cause. So toothaches and backaches and headaches and, upset stomachs and all kinds of things like that. You'll be surprised at the number of things you can do with this. And with this one, practice really, really does help. You get much better at this and better results the more you practice it. I'm going to be teaching you a basic way of doing this today, but there's a lot more advanced applications that you can use with this. As I said, though, you're going to get a lot of bang for your buck just using the basic techniques as they are. So how you would want to address this is you identify what your target issue is, and then you get really specific about it. So let's say your issue was, I hate my job. Well, I hate my job is pretty broad. And if you think of it in terms of being like a table, and the top of the table is I hate my job. And underneath I hate my job are all these reasons why you hate your job that are much more specific. So let's say in this example, your boss is a jerk, your coworkers are boring, the commute is terrible, you're underpaid, you feel like you're not challenged enough at this job, this is a bad match for whatever reason, you didn't dream of this job. This is just something to pay the bills, but what you really want to do is XYZ job over there, whatever. Those are the legs. And so what you would want to do with this is tap on the different legs to be able to make the table collapse. So to demonstrate this, I'm going to go ahead and show you one of the legs. And as we do this, we're going to tap with our target phrase, which is going to be some variation of I'm letting blank go right now, or I'm releasing blank right now. And you want to say it as though you believe it, even if you don't. That's important. Also, smiling while you do it helps, believe it or not. And a fun fact about tapping, just tapping alone without any target at all brings down stress hormones in your body, which is really cool. So it does a lot there, and there's a ton of research on this technique. It does look a little weird. So it's the one that is less portable than the other ones that I showed you, but it still is a really powerful technique, and it's a really, really good skill for you to have. It does take longer, it takes a couple minutes. So go ahead, and if you wear glasses as I do, remove them, because you're going to need to be able to get to your eyes. And I'm going to ask you to go ahead and do this with me. I'm going to use the example of my boss being a jerk. If you have an example of your own to use, feel free to do that and just substitute your words in for mine. I'm going to be doing this riffing a little bit off the general, I'm letting go of this right now, I'm releasing this right now. But you can use those phrases interchangeably, and they're perfectly acceptable. They'll work just fine. So we start with the top of the head and we're just tapping lightly. You can use either hand to do this. You can use both hands. You can switch them out. It doesn't matter. I'm right-handed, so I use this hand. I am letting go of all of the stress because my boss is a jerk right now. And we're going to move down to the middle of the eyebrows. I am releasing every bit of the stress that I feel about my boss right now. And outside of your eye, along the temple and orbital bone, I am letting go of all of this stress about my jerk boss right now. Under your eye, I am letting go of all the stress about my jerk boss because he's not worth it. So I'm letting go of it. And now we're going to tap on your collarbones using your whole hand, at least get one of them. I am releasing all of the stress about my boss. I don't want it. I don't need it. So I'm letting go of it. And that's a whole set. That's all you have to do with this one. Much less complicated than regular tapping. But let's do another round because I always do at least two just to make sure I've got my bases covered. So to the top of the head again. I am letting go of all of the stress about my boss right now. It does not serve me. You'll notice I'm just kind of riffing off this right now. And that is fine. Again, or you can stick to the very same phrase the whole time. That's good too. I am letting go of every bit of stress from every cell in my body about my boss. I'm done with it right now. I am letting go of all of the stress about my boss right now. And under the eye, I am releasing every last bit of stress about my boss. It's not worth it. I'm not going to do it anymore. So I'm letting go of it now. Collarbone area, I am letting go of all the stress that I feel about my boss right now. So now is the time where you would check in with yourself and see how you're feeling. If your distress has gone down to a 0 or 1, or to whatever level is acceptable for you, you can go ahead and go to the ending right now. If you feel like you're making progress, but you still want to do a little more and get more progress, then do more rounds from the head on down, just like we just did. But for the purposes of the demo, I'm going to go ahead and stop now. And this is how we wrap it up. Next, you're going to grab your wrist, either wrist again, doesn't matter. Hold it. And you're going to breathe like I showed you with the pancake breathing earlier. So breathe in deep, stretching your diaphragm out, and release slowly through a straw. And one more for good measure. Fantastic. So, tapping has been very well researched, and we know that it is very, very effective for a lot of things. We're not completely sure, though, why all it works. We know that it decreases stress hormones in the body and other chemicals that are damaging, and that it does seem to boost positive neurotransmitters and other hormones in the body. It's very possible that over time we're going to find out that it has even more positive benefits. But right now, that's what we know. It is based on Eastern medicine, similar to acupressure. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful tool. So I really encourage you to try it and practice this. I hope, in fact, that you'll practice everything, that you'll really give it a shot because it will really help you to mitigate your stress, to make your life more calm and peaceful, and to give you back control over your feelings and whatever's going on in your life. And that really is the point, isn't it? To be happier and to live a more calm life, a life where you feel like you're in control of your feelings and your feelings aren't dragging you around all over the place. If you have any questions about this, you can feel free to contact me. That my information is in the show notes. Thank you so much for your time.